Welcome everybody to this week's episode of the Screen Sermon Podcast, and I'm hesitant to say it, but I think this is my favorite time of the month, and that is the Coming Soon episode. So we're going to do Coming Soon for June 2023 today. I'm your host, B. I'm here with Josh. Welcome back, Josh.
Happy to be back. Get out your notepads and get ready to do some math this month. We did science last week. Let's do some trigonometry this week.
Yeah, we like to tackle some very bizarre concepts on these Coming Soon episodes, from Korean denominations of money to how to measure liquids and pounds and tons and things like that. So yeah, we like to tackle things that we are incredibly not qualified to talk about whenever we get into these. And that's why we kind of talked about it before. I really dig the Coming Soon episodes because it really gives us an opportunity to kind of just banter back and forth and just have a conversation, because we're not so locked into the step-by-step process of talking about a movie that we just saw, and more about, I had a 2-minute interaction with this film because I watched a trailer for it. It got me excited, and here's why. And then, of course, we dovetail off of that into other conversations. So I really enjoy the Coming Soon episodes. I really enjoy all the episodes, but the Coming Soon is a lot of fun, just because it kind of gives us an opportunity to kind of let our hair down, like we've done the previous couple of times that we've done these. So Josh, I wanted to open it up for you. So today we're doing a top 4, and the reason why we're doing that, and we did it the first time as well, is I think we gotta go with the flow in terms of the month. And these summer months, we're gonna get a lot of big releases. I know the month of May was kind of slim pickings, so we dialed it back to 3. So what we're gonna do just is to go through our top 4. We'll start at our 4th most anticipated film and go down to the number 1. But before we even get to that, we've got some honorable mentions as well of other trailers that may have piqued our interest but that didn't make our top 4. So Josh, I wanted to give you the floor to go ahead and give me some of your honorable mentions.
Right, a lot of good stuff in June. It's summer blockbuster season, so we're gonna be jam-packed from June to August with good releases, and then again in October, I imagine, with all the horror stuff coming out then. So I have 8 things here that I wrote down that didn't quite make the cut. The first one I wrote was that I just learned about yesterday. Was Icon, the Robert Englund story. It's just a documentary celebrating the life and career of Robert Englund. And when I read that description, it scared the shit out of me, because I was like, oh god, did he pass away? No, thankfully, he's fine. Because I don't like hearing the words life and career celebrated. You associate that with, scared.
With death.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's usually, when you celebrate somebody's life and career, it's generally, well, maybe not generally, but it's commonly done posthumously.
Yeah, well, he's retiring as Freddy officially, so that's what it was. So.
Okay.
Another one, The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. Just a different take on Frankenstein, just spun a little bit differently. We got Quicksand, which is a film about a couple just getting caught in quicksand. It's one of those movies that thank you, Hero. Oh. It's one of those movies that has a simple concept behind it, but sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. Like The Ledge, I wasn't too big a fan of, but then Fall, which came out last year, I liked that a lot. Yeah,
I heard good things about that. Yeah, I haven't seen it.
What else? Oh, Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. I mentioned that on one of the previous episodes, but just a fuck you from DreamWorks to Disney, because they're doing their own thing featuring Ariel. And I like DreamWorks a lot. I think it's one of the better animation studios in modern times.
Yeah.
God is a Bullet, it's based on a novel, and it's about a man saving his daughter from a cult. I got, what else? Bad Girl Boogie. which is it's a slasher film that's supposed to be an allegory for the struggles of the LGBT community for Pride Month, presumably. Okay. Transformers: Rise of the Beast. Even though I'm not a Transformers fan, and I need to see the Michael Bay films because I still haven't. It looks neat. I don't know. I just have a thing for. I have a thing for robot gorillas, evidently, because that's pretty much what all it boiled down to. Like, I haven't seen Beast Wars or anything, but I imagine if any Transformers stuff would like tickle my fancy, it would be that. And then the last.
It's funny you say that because.
Oh, go on.
Oh, sorry. It's fun. It's funny you say that. I was hyped when the first Transformers movie came out in 2007, I think. I wasn't even a huge fan of the IP to begin with. I remember seeing the original Transformers film from like '86 with Unicron and the amazing soundtrack and stuff like that, and it was really cool. But I didn't really watch the series. So my first real exposure to Transformers was in the mid-90s when that Beast Wars really early CGI show came out, and I watched all of that and was really into it. So I think since the first Transformers film came out with Shia LaBeouf, I really hadn't shown much interest in any of the ones in between. But now I'm excited about this one because it's got the Beast Wars guys in it. And so it's also on my honorable mentions list for that reason. It reminds me of the 90s.
Oh, great. I think it's I don't know. I haven't been into it. I had the toys growing up, but I never watched the show. If I had to pick a favorite Transformer, it'd be Megatron, just because I know he turned into a gun.
Yeah.
I think
and in Beast Wars, he was a purple T-Rex.
I think one of the characters in one of the Michael Bay movies is a toaster. I think.
I know in the first one, there's a awesome bit of product placement because a Mountain Dew vending machine turns into a Transformer and shoots cans of Mountain Dew at people.
Well, they are product placement because, like, I believe the like Bumblebee is a Mustang, and I believe they got like some type of deal done with the car companies that they're based off of for those films.
He's a Camaro. Yeah, in the new one he's a Camaro. A new one. In the live action films he's a Camaro.
Oh, and
he was originally a Volkswagen Beetle.
Oh yeah, that's right, he was. That's a major upgrade.
Yeah.
My last honorable mention was Brooklyn 45, film where a bunch of military veterans in 1945 all get together and catch up over drinks, and for some reason they decide to have a seance, and then shit just goes awry.
I watched the trailer for that one too. It definitely looked like something that was up your alley. Also worth mentioning, God is a Bullet was also on my honorable mentions. It has Jaime Lannister from Game of Thrones in it. It looks a lot like a kind of Death Wish kind of film. Or Kevin Bacon made a very similar kind of film as Death Wish or this God is a Bullet film. And it was in the late aughts, and I can't remember what it was called. But it's a very similar like revenge plot. Like either it's a gang, I think, in this one, and they either kidnap one of his kids or they kill one of his kids, something like that, and then he just goes on a rampage to avenge them. And I think, I'm not 100% sure, I think he had cancer in that film too. So it was very much like like he's got nothing to lose now because I'm pretty sure his kid was killed. So he's like, my kid's dead, I'm dying. He just basically throws caution to the wind and gets into this massive shootout at like a meth house or something like that. I remember it being a really cool movie and nobody ever talked about it. But this God is a Bullet reminded me of it. Okay, so outside of those two, the rest of them are all still fresh because like I told you before we started recording, I have 12 honorable mentions. So, 2 of them you've already mentioned, so we can leave those aside. So, from the top, I've got The Roundup, No Way Out. It's a Korean action film starring Don Lee, who I got my first interaction with from Train to Busan. He's the like built guy that I forget why he's his character in that film specifically, but he was like the strong guy with a heart of gold. This time he's the lead. I'm not 100% sure about the plot. It just looks like a crime action film where he's up against the mob or something like that. Just looked like a badass action movie. Lots of cool choreography in the trailer and stuff. My second one was Simulant with Jordana Brewster. It's got something to do with there being... kind of reminds me of iRobot in that there are synthetic people that are mainly created to be servants of some kind, and there's directives that are hardwired into them about like not hurting people and not doing this, that, and the other. And of course, some of them get intentionally coded differently, or there's some kind of a virus or some kind of flaw in their coding, and so they start to gain sentience, and it's all about like what actually makes somebody alive and stuff. It looked interesting. A little tropey, like stuff that's been done before, but it looked cool. The next one that I thought was interesting was Follow Her, which is the best way that I can describe this movie. It looks like an indie horror film where essentially a social media influencer kind of gets into a dual writing gig with a weird guy, and they kind of shack up together, and they're trying to... I think they're writing a script or a novel, I can't remember exactly, and the guy basically suggests that they role play some of the stuff out so that the story kind of naturally builds based on their reactions to things. And of course it takes a dark turn from there, and you're really questioning his intentions and whether or not he's actually a psychopath trying to kill her and stuff. It reads to me like a film that is going to be an indie film right now, and then in a couple of years they're going to remake it in a Hollywood studio with a more recognizable cast. Because the premise looked cool. They seem to have a lot of cool... there's a lot of cool ideas in there based on the trailer, but the people that are in it are absolute no-names as far as I know, and the acting looked pretty poor. Could just be that the trailer was poor, but the performances didn't look all that great. And it struck me as a film that in like 4 years they're going to remake it and just put different people in it, recognizable people.
Yeah, I didn't have a release date for that. It probably would have been on my honorable mentions too if I'd known that. It premiered at a few festivals last year to some high praise, so it's been on my watch list for a while. But I had no idea when it was coming out, because it was, the last I heard, it premiered at sometime in October last year at Screamfest.
Okay. And we were talking about this earlier too, specifically about international films, but I guess it really extends itself to indie as well. You know, I go off of movieinsider.com to populate my list of like, these are the trailers I need to watch before the episode to decide what's going to go on my list. And they'll include stuff, and then when I go to look further into it later, it's like, but this released last year, you know, and there's no clear release date for like when it's going to be, like you were talking about, when it's going to be available for everybody. And so, yeah, it makes it a little difficult sometimes to figure out like what is an actual June release. You know, why is this listed with the... Yeah. So it's on my list. Maybe it shouldn't be there. And it did make sense that it would be on yours, and that you didn't bring it up because the timing probably didn't make any sense. Yeah, I mean, according to IMDb, the two like the most recent release dates that they have listed are May 11th, 2023, and that's when it released in Russia and Ukraine. So I don't know what the hell movieinsider.com is telling me. So, you know, wipe that one from the list if you like. But either way, I got to tell you folks about it if you hadn't heard. You'll probably find my list has a few of those just because I have a tendency to snag onto the foreign language films and stuff that comes from other countries, and they have very bizarre release dates. My next one is kind of, I don't know, it struck a chord with me. Flamin' Hot, the movie about the origin of the Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
Alright.
I don't know, man. I mean, A, I enjoy Flamin' Hot Cheetos, and B, there was something about the rags to riches story of a Hispanic janitor and his kids, and they eat spicy food and stuff like that, trying to come up with a way to make Frito-Lay more interesting so that they don't go out of business, or rather so they don't cut like people's jobs and stuff. And it of course eventually becomes a mega success. It looked like, I don't know, it looked like a sweet film. It looked like it had a cool story to it, so it struck a chord.
There's a lot of those recently, aren't there? What with like Tetris and Air that came out this year about Tetris and Jordans, Air Jordans specifically. And I think a BlackBerry would just come out too.
You're 100% right. I think it was on, or it barely missed my honorable mentions for last month, I think. I can't remember if I mentioned it or not.
Neat.
Because it did interest me. Next up was one that I was going to put on my top 4. It was going to be my number 4, but I had to bump it because of weird release schedule stuff, but I'm going to mention it here anyway. It was called Aloners, and it's another Korean film, so that's 2 on this list now with the roundup. And it's about a gal that works in a call center, and she's like the top. She's like, they have, I guess, an internal kind of competition every month about who was the top caller or call receiver or something like that. And this girl is evidently very good at her job, but she happens to be a loner in real life, and it's about, I don't know, it's a drama film. It seems to be about, like, she's so good at being by herself and not having to rely on other people, but in reality she's really lonely and would actually like to have people. It looked like it was well acted. I'm not 100% sure what was going on in the story, but the performances look good and the cinematography looked good. And so usually cinematography alone is how you get me in the door. So it was going to be on my list, and I would have looked into it more, only to find out I think it originally released in 2021. So again, not sure why it's on a June 2023 list, but yeah, go check it out if it's out there. Next is Persian Lessons, which looked good. It's a World War II period film about a guy who is essentially, he either is Persian, which doesn't make any sense, or he's posing as a Persian person when he gets caught in a group of Jewish folks by Nazis. He basically, the way he thinks to save his own life is by calling out, "I'm not Jewish, I'm Persian." And he ends up linking up with some higher ranking Nazi officer, and this guy wants to open a German restaurant in Persia, I guess, in the area known as Persia. And so he's trying to get this guy to teach him Farsi. But the thing is this guy doesn't know how to speak Farsi, so he literally has to make up his own language and memorize everything that he's made up, so that this guy doesn't find out about the lie and kill him.
Sounds like the machine that we mentioned last time.
Yeah, you're right. Except for the whole, obviously this isn't a comedy. It's, a thriller, or I guess a drama. But yeah, that looked cool. I like the idea. I guess it's based on a true story as well, which makes sense.
Alleged.
The next one, allegedly, yeah, of course. The next one for me was Extraction 2 with Chris Hemsworth. It's a straight to Netflix action movie. I didn't even watch the first one, but I watched the trailer for this one. I was like, yeah, it looks good. Yeah, it looks well choreographed and stuff. The stunts look cool. No clue what the movie's about, really. And obviously I didn't watch the first one, so I don't know how good it was or not. Next, we're getting into Marvel territory, or MCU territory, Secret Invasion. It's actually a series and not a movie, but I'm always excited for MCU stuff, despite not being a huge fan of Phase 4. So every time something new comes out with Marvel, I'm hoping that it kind of rights the ship a little bit and gets us back on track. This one's more focused on Nick Fury and espionage, as the Skrulls are hiding among normal people and, planning something dubious, and Nick Fury can't rely on the Avengers to come and help him for plot reasons, I'm sure. One more. Next is Revoir Paris, which is a obviously French language film. I guess in a French bistro. From the top of the film, it looks like there's a shooting that takes place, and it's all about the survivors of that shooting kind of reconnecting with one another, or trying to kind of get their lives back on track after going through such a tragedy. Specifically, it's highlighting the gal that seems to be the lead. Somebody was holding her hand, like a complete stranger was holding her hand during the shooting. And it sounds like she's going to spend part of the film trying to find that guy and reconnect with him and thank him or something like that. Looked good, looked, like a pretty heavy subject matter, obviously, but it looked like a good movie, good performances. And then my last one was the horror movie coming to, I think it was Netflix, Run Rabbit Run.
God damn, that was another one that would have made mine had it not had the whole issue with festival release dates.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think you can take some of these with a grain of salt. And yeah, it's like the lady has a sister that passed away when she was young, and now the daughter is basically acting like she is the sister, and creepy stuff is happening, and yeah. So, again, I might have to pick a different website to find out what my releases are. I don't know. What do you use, Josh?
I do a mix of I look into every month, because I post them on Twitter, what the horror releases are. And I use sources such as Letterboxd and IMDb mainly. But I also just like Google, like sometimes Wikipedia, not always, because it tends to not be reliable. But then again, I've found no site to be 100% on point with anything. So
sure. Yeah, and I use IMDb for a lot of my research and stuff for episodes, and so you would think I would use it to figure out what stuff is coming out, but of course I don't.
Well, sometimes they don't even have the release dates on there, like the wide release. It's just when it has released and not when it will.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, because like I'm scrolling through IMDb's like releases for June right now. And there's stuff in here that was not on movieinsider.com. So I probably even missed out on a few things.
Yeah, I try to...
But whatever, we're doing our best.
Right. I try to check a few different places. And because, especially with horror, which I try to put out there what all is coming out. But there's always, like, for every movie that I find that I'm like, okay, this is coming out this day, there's going to be like... And I'm not exaggerating, like 100 indie releases that release on any given day that I won't hear about until God knows when.
Yeah. So did you want to go ahead and get into your number 4?
Yeah. All right. Well, this first film, my number 4, is sort of difficult to talk about when it comes to the trailer, because the trailer didn't give away much. It seems like something that would be up your alley, the way it's very stylized. But it's the Japanese film New Religion. In the trailer, it has a few lines. It says, "A mysterious man, a mother who lost her daughter, an invasion of reality, and we wake up in your dreams." But it doesn't really... It's more shots than actually telling you anything about the film, for the most part. Fortunately, I do know a little about it, because it released last year in Japan. The reason why it's my number 4, because it narrowly bumped out. Well, I had a few things in the running for number 4. I think it narrowly beat out Ruby Gillman and Transformers, because it's supposed to be a Japanese surrealist body horror film, and given that body horror is my favorite subgenre of horror, and I love Cronenberg so much, it immediately, I was like, well, I need to see this. The synopsis was Miyabi's daughter died, so she starts working as a call girl, and then there's a customer that comes in, all skeezy and shit, and he wants to take pictures of various parts of her body, and it says every time she allows her body to be photographed, her daughter's spirit gets closer to her. So she has to decide how far she's willing to connect with her daughter. And that's what I got from that. So since the trailer didn't show much, I interpreted that as, well, each part of the body can be used once then. That's what I would
okay.
That's what I would take it as. So like if you took a picture of her, like her fucking her feet, you can't use her feet no more. But eventually externally you would run out of pictures to be taken.
Right.
So I would imagine, and I'm pretty much, this is speculation at this point, which is part of the fun, because it's one of those films where it doesn't give a lot away, so you get to think on it. So I might be hyping it up more in my head than it will deliver, but that's fine. I think that's the point of a trailer anyway.
Well, I think that's what's fun about, and I think that's what's fun about surrealist kind of films like that. Like you said, it's, instead of explicitly telling you what this means or what this is supposed to be, it leaves it up to you to try to figure it out or try to decide maybe what it means to you.
Right. So I imagine at some point, and since the subject matter is kind of horny, I imagine it's gonna go to genitals. But then I have a feeling, for some reason, that it's gonna do a right turn right from there to like organs and things that wouldn't be lethal if they were removed from your body. Sort of potentially a self-mutilation situation. But you know, that's just my interpretation of it. It's I wrote down the director. It's directed by Kaishi Kondo, and since it's an international film, naturally I am not familiar with anybody involved in the project, just because not a lot of stuff is available to me being in the States.
Right.
More in recent
years, and to your point,
you know.
Go ahead.
I just said more so in recent years. There's a lot of international stuff coming over with this is coming out on. I'm getting to this part a little bit early, but this is coming out on June 20th on Screambox, which is Bloody Disgusting, the horror news site's streaming service. It has a Screambox exclusive, and that service, and I don't remember how much a month it is, but they do a lot in the ways of getting international films over here. And so do places like, I think Tubi does a little bit. There's a lot of good stuff on Tubi, believe it or not. And Netflix also do a lot in the realm of bringing international stuff overseas.
I have long, since we began this show, sang the praises of Netflix for having a lot of international stuff on there. And we'll be using Tubi, or at least I will be, for next week's show, because we're going to review the Spanish film Witching and Bitching, and it's on Tubi. It's the only place I can find it, so thanks to them for that.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I recommended that to you as an international film that I enjoy. We'll talk about more of that soon.
More next week, and it'll be you and I. I don't know if anybody else is going to jump on. I kind of left the floor open for other co-hosts to jump on as well. It might just be Josh and I. We might be joined by someone else. I have no clue. And then what I wanted to mention to you about the body horror piece, and also your suggestion about it eventually escalating into organs. I mean, at one point during the trailer, it is like the image of a heart is essentially forming on the screen, almost like it's being like 3D printed, kind of, but not. There's no like technology that's implied. It's more like it's growing. So yeah, I think you might be spot on with that.
Yeah, that's what I guess I described with the synopsis that was put in front of me. I described the direction that I thought it would go if I was like making it.
Sure.
Especially since it's, body horror, and it's going to have body horror in it. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this one, because the trailer didn't give you much. It gave you a lot to think about, but it didn't give you much in the way of showing you stuff. Yeah.
Well, and I find that in these top fours, I find that my 4 and my 3, I have less to say than I do my 2 and my 1. And so I think, the topics kind of tend to expand more as you get into the ones you're really looking forward to. So for me, my number 4 is the Wes Anderson film Asteroid City. And it releases on June 23rd. It's going to be everywhere because, as you and I discussed earlier, getting a little bit ahead of myself, but all my top 4 are pretty much these big releases. I didn't really lock into any of the smaller releases this month other than the Aloners one, and then I got scared off by the release window. That being said, I recognize that Wes Anderson is a pretty well-regarded writer, director in Hollywood, but people may be shocked to find, or maybe not shocked to find, that I run a movie and TV podcast with my friends and family. I have never seen a Wes Anderson movie.
Cool, me neither.
And yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. I think that a few of them have come and gone, and I have had friends of mine who are on this show that respect Wes Anderson's work or have suggested Wes Anderson's work to me, and I've just never clicked with it. For some reason, I don't know if maybe I just got to an age now where it's starting to come together for me as like, no, this is interesting looking. But seeing the trailer for Asteroid City, I was like, oh, I would watch that. That looks like something I would watch. And completely understanding that the vibe of that trailer is got to be the same vibe of a lot of his films, or most of his films, because he has a style, he has a certain quirkiness to his scripts and his direction and things like that. So the premise just seems to be I think it was literally something like a junior stargazing group, or a junior stargazing convention or something like that, comes to a screeching halt when like an earth-shattering event happens. And so to me, it just seems like these people gather out in the middle of nowhere. It kind of reminds me of like Jupe's attraction in Nope. They're all kind of gathered at a place kind of like that, and from what it looks like, an actual real alien invasion happens, and then the government shuts the place down and basically tells everybody they're not allowed to leave. And so now they have to live in this place together. It looks really offbeat and odd, which I think is par for the course for a Wes Anderson film. And if nothing else, this cast, it drew me to it immediately. Just to see this many big name actors that I appreciate their work and other things, and they're all going to come together and do this one project. People clearly seem to like doing Wes Anderson's films, otherwise, how would he have done this? But it's got Scarlett Johansson in it. It's got Jason Schwartzman in it, who I know he's been in one or more of his films. I know he was in Rushmore. It's got Jeffrey Wright, who I know from Westworld, in it, and he was Commissioner Gordon in The Batman. America's, one of America's favorite actors, Tom Hanks, is in it. Tilda Swinton's in it. Bryan Cranston, Adrian Brody, Edward Norton, Liev Schreiber. It is just all of these people. Maya Hawke, who is now her star is on the rise after being on Stranger Things. Steve Carell's in it. Willem Dafoe, Margot Robbie, just this incredible cast of people are all coming together to do this one project. And and the premise is odd. The colors, it's a very colorful trailer. It's got these very bright but muted colors. It looks really cool, and I'm interested to see a Wes Anderson flick, and it may not be this one, but I think it's time that I finally sit down and sit through one. But when this one is available streaming somewhere, I'm going to make sure to go out of my way to see it.
Yeah, I wrote my first note before I played the trailer was that Asteroid City was directed by Wes Anderson, an acclaimed director who I've never seen any films from. which is like you said, a travesty. But I've just never they've been available to me, but I've never actually sat down and watched one, which is shameful given how interested in film I am. But yeah, and I like you said, I also wrote down that the cast is a who's who of names. So many people involved in this that I think even people who don't like go to the movies all the time would recognize just from their names. I'm surprised that you haven't seen a Wes Anderson film, though, given that he's a very stylized director, and that seems to be the type of films that you gravitate towards.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I think that I seem to remember the group of friends that got me into watching film in like the mid to late aughts, and really kind of taught me about watching it a certain way and like through a certain lens. Though I feel like those guys would commonly quote like Steve Zissou, like, The Life Aquatic, and I remember that movie had just come out around that time and stuff. It just didn't, I don't know, for whatever reason, it was never something that I sat down and watched. It was never something that they kind of pushed. Like, well, if you haven't seen this, we have to sit down and do that right now. Like, it was never anything like that. And yeah, it just ended up being something that completely slipped past me and over my head. And like since then, I know the Grand Budapest Hotel has gotten a lot of good critical reception. People seem to really like that movie. I just, for whatever reason, I've never sat down to watch a Wes Anderson film, but it's something that's got to change.
Yeah, and I'm not very familiar with how it is in other films of his, but the film, the colors in this film seem to be, very bold color choices. I think that I had to stop this more than any of the other trailers that we're going to talk about tonight, but I think I had to stop this trailer the most because every shot from at least the trailer, I don't know about the film, but every shot from the trailer, it looked like it was a painting.
Yeah.
It was
very pastel.
Yeah. A lot of yellows, a lot of baby blues.
Mm-hmm.
It was just very visually pleasing, and the subject matter, like you said, it does remind me a lot of Nope, since that came out just last summer.
Yeah,
but and
it's just that setting. It's like in the middle of the desert, and
Except I think this one's gonna, because I would argue that Nope was a horror sci-fi comedy. This isn't a horror film, but I do argue it's still a sci-fi comedy with I think it's also billed as a romance and a drama.
Okay.
So I'm interested to see.
Yeah, they seem to have like ScarJo and Jason Schwartzman seem to have some chemistry going on in the trailer, and that one funny line at the end where it was like, because I guess Scarlett Johansson's character in the film is an actress, and so she is talking about like different parts and stuff throughout the course of the trailer. Whenever she's having dialogue, it sounds like she's talking about a part that she had. And at the end, she asks Jason Schwartzman, she says, I was in a nude scene, do you want to see it? And he like fumbles over his line to respond to her. And then he kind of catches himself and he goes, I know I didn't say it, but I meant to say yes. It's just like it's such a weird interaction. But yeah, I don't know. Look good. I'm interested.
Yeah, it's one of those, if it wasn't one of your picks, it would have been one of my honorable mentions. In fact,
okay.
I think that's the that's the case with this one and a half of one, and we'll get to that when we get to that.
Okay.
Do you want to say the release date though?
Oh, I thought I did.
You might.
Now I gotta look at it again. June 23rd. It releases. I'm assuming widely.
Oh, that film's gonna be everywhere.
Yeah. all the films I'm going to talk about today are going to be very easy to find.
That's fair. I think all of mine too, except for that first one, because it's a streaming exclusive, because that's how they got it to be available in the States.
Okay.
Are we jumping into my number 3 then?
Yes, sir. Fire away.
Perfect. My number 3 is a film that I know we're both interested in, because we've been talking about it back and forth since the first trailer dropped. The Blackening.
Uh-huh. Yes. Can't wait for this movie.
Have you seen what it's based on?
What it's based on?
Right.
No.
Oh, dude. Alright, so, The Blackening, this is a feature-length, version of a, I guess you'd call it a sketch comedy bit. It was the group 3-Peat did a sketch, which was essentially the trailer, but a lot less horror and a lot more comedy.
Okay.
And I highly recommend.
It's funny. The trailer's funny as hell.
The sketch is even funnier. I highly recommend. I'm gonna spoil it during this, but even then, I don't think that you still won't pop for a lot of the jokes in it. But I'll touch on that in a minute. So, in screenwriting class, one of the things that is recommended for you before you start a project is, can you boil this down to a one-sentence what-if question? So this seems to take that route and go, okay, what if it was a horror movie, but the entire cast is black? Who would die first?
Mm-hmm.
And so they just go from there in a genre-skewing way, sort of like Scream. I'm not saying that they'll be on the same level of quality, because this is a comedy film first and a horror film second, even though it's way more horror than the original sketch was. I mean, the board game in the film has a fucking gollywog. And the main villain, who in the film is wearing like it's a good design. I'm gonna shit on it, but I do like it. He's wearing like a gimp suit, like a fetish suit. And it's a white dude. You can see like his eyes. It's a white dude in a gimp suit.
I didn't even pick up on that. Okay.
Yeah. So he's stalking them, and the trailer is essentially the sketch, just less funny.
Okay.
But it hits the same marks. So this I'll just say what the sketch does, because it has a different setup. In the sketch, they're all running, and they enter this house, and there's a guy sitting there, and he said, yeah, there's a killer after me, and he was going to kill all of us, but all of us are black, and it really fucked him up, so he let me live since I felt like a white woman. And he said he'll spare us if we sacrifice the blackest one. And that's pretty much where the same trailer picks up from, with less of the jokes, even though it does reuse some of the jokes, but not the funniest ones, believe it or not. I'm hoping
like the I voted for Trump twice one?
Yeah, it does. It has that in the original one too. I'm glad that they left that one in. I'm not the blackest. I've never seen Friday. I voted for Trump twice. There's a film like this, and I don't think it was based off of the same short film. It might have been inspired by it, and I mentioned it before.
Okay.
It came out last year, called Bitch Ass, and it was also a black horror comedy. But it wasn't funny enough, and it wasn't horror enough. So it kind of it failed on two separate marks, which is not what you want to do. It was still okay, but I feel like this is going to be hilarious, no matter which way you cut it. In the sketch, it's like a prolonged argument of which one of us is the blackest. And rather than the villain having like this costume on, it's just like a redneck outside. And
All right.
so some of the lines, just from memory, and because I really need to watch the sketch again before I watch the movie, because the sketch was great. It's on YouTube. I think it's on Comedy Central's YouTube channel, but it's like 5 or 6 years old at this point.
Okay.
When they're arguing back and forth, one of the guys says they're talking about how white they are, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so white, I let my dog kiss me on the mouth."
I didn't know that was a white thing.
They get more and more heated as time goes on. Like, there's an African guy in it, and he's like, "Well, he's the blackest because he's from Africa." And then the one, they reuse this in the trailer too, but I don't believe they used the same line. It's like, I can't be the blackest, I'm gay. And in the original sketch, that's followed by, gayness is just whiteness wrapped in a bunch of dicks.
That's amazing.
And they all start arguing back and forth. One of them yells, "I hate seasoning." My favorite line from the original sketch was, "I can't be the blackest. I thought quinoa was one of the days of Kwanzaa."
That's great.
And the sketch.
You weren't lying, man. The trailer definitely had me laughing, but the sketch sounds hysterical.
You better watch this after we're done recording this episode, because that video is funny.
Okay.
It ends with them going, "All right, well, we'll find out who's the blackest. Everybody put your bag on the table and empty them. Whoever's got hot sauce is the blackest." So they all do, and the one guy who said he voted for Trump twice is the only one where hot sauce comes out of his bag. So they throw him to the wolves, and he gets murdered. And then the other ones all empty their pockets, and they all also have bottles of hot sauce. They were like, "We just did that because he voted for Trump. We needed to do it for the culture." I can't wait to see how they turned that. I think it was like a 4 or 5 minute sketch, very Key and Peele-esque 3P. I can't wait to see that as a feature-length film. I hope that, ideally it would be just because the sketch, it was an endless stream of joke after joke after joke, because it was just people yelling on top of each other why they're whiter. And I'm hoping it's like that. Not necessarily to that degree, but where it doesn't stop. It just keeps coming, and you can mix horror in there and still have that going.
Yeah, and well, I mean, Saturday Night Live did it with varying degrees of success in terms of taking 4 or 5 minute shorts and turning them into films. I mean, there was all those SNL characters that had movies in the 90s and early 2000s to varying degrees of success. They weren't all winners,
we
but
got Coneheads, so
right. But no, it looks awesome, and and at the end of the day, like, full disclosure, I'm a white guy. Like, I'm maybe not necessarily the intended audience or the target audience, but I certainly can watch a film where some of my whiteness and stuff like that gets brought up, and that's the funny stuff, because I don't get to see that kind of stuff very often. So I think it looks hysterical, and also wrapping it in that dressing of it being a horror movie is going to appeal to me as well. So it's from the guy that did Ride Along and Soul Plane, which I didn't see either one of those films, but he's obviously got some chops behind him in terms of getting big feature films made and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be a competently made film. It sounds like it's based off of source material that's awesome. So I'm excited for it. I've been excited for it, like you said, since we saw that first trailer.
And while it's still a comedy and a horror, and I don't think it's gonna it's not going to beat you over the head with any type of messages or anything. But I think there is still something to be said about it, much in the way that Tales from the Hood does, because it's presenting that issues that obviously I don't know about as much as somebody who is in the black community does, being a white person. But it's like black people can't do these things because that's not, what they're supposed to do. There's a little bit of a hint of like conformity there. Like these are the notes of what you can't do, and it's played for laughs in the film, but I do think it's still, it's still something to be said there. And just as long as it's done, and I'm sure it will be, because there's nothing pointing it in the direction that it wouldn't. As long as it's done subtextually and not just like in your face with it, I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to give you any type of whiplash watching the movie, because it looks like it's just hilarious, and I'm sure it'll be gory to a degree too, with how they're doing the killer. Instead of just being a white guy, he's like a generic slasher villain.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's
he's got a crossbow,
right? I'm wondering how the costume will come into play there, or if it doesn't at all. If they're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But that's pretty much all I have to say, unless you have anything else. It comes out.
No, man.
Oh, that's it. It comes out on June 16th in theaters, which is the weekend before Juneteenth. I was kind of hoping that they would align with each other, but Juneteenth falls on a Monday, so it's understandable why they chose a weekend. It's when most of their revenue would be. But yeah, it releases on June 16th in theaters. I hope it has a wider release. Something tells me it'll be a little bit harder to find than the other films we're going to mention that have theatrical releases. But yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm into it. It would have been on my list, had it not been on yours. So jumping into my number 3, and this one, we can kind of breeze through. I don't have tons to say about it, but it is my number 3, and that's Elemental, the new Pixar film. It's coming to theaters on June 16th. It's going to be all over the place because it's Pixar. Bottom line is, this goes on my list because these are all films that I'm excited about, right? And this one gets on there. I mean, yeah, the premise and the animation and stuff like that is all great. It's about the 4 natural elements, basically, if they were groups of people. So you have like the fire people, the water people, the air people, and the earth people, and they all have very expected traits, personality traits among them based on the elements that they are. And basically the central idea of the film is that elements don't mix. You're not supposed to cross the streams, so to speak. And through some shenanigans, a water person and a fire person end up kind of teaming up together and crossing over into each other's lives and interacting with each other's families and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I think it's, a message there of, acceptance and integration, because I know the director, Peter Sohn, grew up in Korea, and his family eventually immigrated to the States, and he ended up in the Bronx, I think. And the story is very much based on his experience of, this crossover of cultures, and then eventually, finding those commonalities and that common ground so that you can all feel like you're basically part of the same community, despite coming from different places and stuff. Great message. Looks like a lot of fun, very vibrant and colorful and creative, the way that they have these elemental people interacting with things. And, it looks great. Bottom line, the reason why it's on my list and that I'm excited to see it is because my daughter is excited to see it. And so that means I'm probably going to end up in a movie theater watching it with her, which is an experience I'm always excited about having. So her and I having opportunities to go to the theater and watch things together is certainly something that I'm looking forward to and very excited to do more. As she gets interested in things, I'm going to be interested in them too. This one happened to be one that she saw the trailer for it and instantly decided she wanted to go to the theater and see it. So it lands on my top 4, and I'm excited to go see it too, because I get to do it with her, and that's literally the cut and dried reason why it's my number 3. I'm really excited.
I'm glad you had that nice heartfelt little speech there right before I trash this movie.
Oh, please trash away.
It's not even. It doesn't even look bad. It's the problem with it, and the director did this is the same director who did The Last Dinosaur. Is I feel like
The Good Dinosaur.
The Good Dinosaur, which I have seen.
Yeah.
I feel like based on this film and that film, and there are assumptions being made about this one just from the trailer, but I feel like he's playing it way too safe with his films. Because both that one and the trailer, they look very derivative of like all the other Pixar films. The best way I could describe it is in wrestling terms, where if a particular company is training people on how to perform, they get that style. Like if you're a WWE guy at the Performance Center and you're trained by them, you work like a WWE person, and it doesn't necessarily translate well when you go to a different company. Like you're very much a homegrown person, and that's how he feels like with his Pixar films. Like it feels like all stuff. It doesn't feel new. It's still visually impressive as all Pixar films are, and I would argue that all of them are. But like, it's essentially just Inside Out again, but with elements. I feel like I've seen the movie already before. I feel like I know I could write a whole script of what I think the movie would be, or based on the trailers, and I don't think that I'd be very far off. You have an outsider coming in, and the two people who don't get along, despite the odds, are able to see through their differences and come together, yada yada. It's just like, I'm gonna watch it. It's a big release, and I try to watch every big release in a given year. But it looks like it's gonna end up being one of those middle-of-the-road movies where you watch it and you go, okay, that was alright. But then, when you think of, like, Pixar films, that's, like, one of the last ones that's gonna pop into your mind.
Do you think it's a romance thing? Like, do you think the fire lady and the water guy end up being a couple?
I think probably, because I have a feeling that I don't exactly know how it would be done, but they're going to mix together and like create a new element or something to that effect. Like how in Inside Out you ended up with these combinations of emotions. I feel like they're basically going to replay that again in some form. Like something like if you mix like earth and water together, you get mud, and if you mix fire and water, you get steam, and something like that. Something like a, I don't know, doodle god. I didn't expect to bring that up. Why I went there.
Yeah, like I said, it's more of a, rather than a technical or a, looking at it from like a critique kind of lens, it's literally just more of a personal reason to be excited about a movie. It's like, oh yeah, I get to go see it with my kid. Like, and would I seek this film out? Did I not have children to watch it with? No, probably not. It would have been a different movie in my top 4, but films are also about experiences, right? And so I think that's why over the last several years, specifically with like Top Gun Maverick and stuff, like there's been these movies that are coming out where it's like people are going back to the theater again, like things are starting to normalize after the pandemic and things like that, and going to the theater is supposed to be part of the experience. Like sure, streaming at home was great when we all were fearing this specter of death that was floating around and things, but like at the end of the day, going out to the theater and having an experience with your friends or with your family, with your spouse, whomever, is kind of part of it. And so now I have an opportunity to engage with this movie, with my children rather than, like, oh yeah, it dropped on Disney Plus, so we can watch it, randomly on a given weekend or something like that. It'll be cool to go and have that experience with my child in a movie theater with surround sound and big screen and all that stuff. So yeah, it's the only reason it made it on there. The plot and things like that didn't necessarily pique my interest, but just the experience of it.
Right, that makes sense. I mean, I'm sure that while I'm looking at it from a more cynical critic approach, that its target audience of children, they're not going to give a shit. You're going to watch it and they're going to probably like it. I mean, like I said, it's visually impressive. One of the more recent, like one of the better Pixar films visually, I think, because they're like the fire effects and everything is, I believe it's really well done. But a weak script is a weak script, and I don't think anybody's going to be talking about Elemental until Oscar season, and I think that's only going to be because they have to nominate Pixar films, even if they're not necessarily good.
Yeah, or their corporate overlords will come down on them.
Yeah, basically.
So go ahead and take it away with your number 2.
My number 2 film, I'm actually probably seeing opening weekend this weekend, is The Boogeyman. It's based on a Stephen King short story and directed by Rob Savage, who made The Host, which was fantastic, and made Dashcam, which was not fantastic. But hopefully The Boogeyman will bring it back into fantastic territory. I'm not really...
I hope
since he's a swing and a miss and also a swing and a hit, I don't necessarily know what to expect from his third outing. It's interesting, and even if it falters, I won't blame him too much, because the source material is a short story featured in... I don't remember what magazine it was published in, but it was published in the Night Shift collection, which I have somewhere on my shelf. And it's only a 13-page story, so making it a 90-something minute film isn't going to be the easiest. However, and I might be completely off base with this, I discovered something while I was looking at the Letterboxd. So in the original short story, the whole story is a man recounting with his therapist the death of his 3 children. How the boogeyman killed all 3 of them after his kids have mentioned that the boogeyman's there and he's in their closet. Every time he goes in, the closet's cracked a little bit, and then it turns out at the end of the story. Have you read the story?
I haven't. No.
Well, I'm spoiling that.
You can tell me. It doesn't matter.
At the end of the story, the therapist is like, "Oh, go check with the nurse," and he goes to check with the nurse, and there is no nurse, and he comes back, and the therapist was actually the boogeyman, like wearing a person mask, which is a little bit silly.
Ooh.
But they describe him as being like, it's been a while, but like a little zombie-like in a sense, where he's got like, they describe him as like a Tales from the Crypt villain. So I imagine something like the zombie out of Creepshow. That might just be what I remembered in my head from reading it as a kid, because I haven't read it in a while. I'm going to before I see it, but I know they explicitly mention Tales from the Crypt. So yeah, the film follows the children this time. It's set up a bit differently, and the children are a little older. So I thought that was interesting, and there's only 2 of them. And as it turns out, I think that this isn't a direct... I don't think this is a direct interpretation, because I believe that the guy that says the boogeyman's the thing that comes for your kids when you're not paying attention is supposed to be the main character in the original story. So he's in it, but it's not what happened to him. He might recount it, and that be the interpretation of the story, and then you have your own original script. But I believe that he's the one giving them advice. Like, I've dealt with this before. And I didn't, they didn't actually show the creature, but I'm, hoping that turns out well. I know there are leaks online, but I have managed to avoid them thus far. The internet can be a pain in the ass when it comes to... I spoiled something potentially for a different film that we're going to talk about later, but it's a theory so far, so I could talk about it because it's not technically a spoiler, and it might not happen. So we'll get there. You'll know it when you see it. So yeah, it follows different kids, and they're older because in the original story, they're all like, I think 5 was the oldest one.
Okay.
I know that the first 2 were in cribs, and then the third one takes place after the other 2 had died, and they had another kid. Like some years later, they moved away, but it followed them. And then in the story, the dude knows, Billings knows that the boogeyman's coming for this third kid, so he takes him out of his bedroom, and he's like, well, ain't gonna get me. So he's just like, fuck him. He puts him in another room, and then the boogeyman comes and he finds him breaking his kid's neck, and he just leaves and goes to...
Oh, Jesus.
He leaves, and then he goes to the diner, and then he comes back and he deals with it, and he's like, well... I think it's just suspected that he's the one who committed the murders instead of a monster.
That's where I thought, that's where I thought you were going when you were first talking about it, but then you flipped it and talked about how the therapist ended up being in the original short story. And it's funny you bring it up too, because I've actually decided to read through Stephen King's his horror film, his horror novels are what I want to read, and not his Richard Bachman stuff. I want to read the Stephen King horror books, and so I'm starting from the beginning. I've already read through Carrie. I'm already detouring a little bit because I'm reading Jurassic Park for some reason. It's just been a long time since I've read it, but I definitely want to get back into the King novels after I'm done with that, and his short story collections are definitely something I'd like to read that short story prior to seeing the film.
Yeah, the one that I just pretty much told you the entire fucking 13 pages of.
Yeah, but I still got to read it.
And it's interesting that you said that, because I was actually thinking about also reading his entire bibliography, but including the Bachman books.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just literally just the other day I checked out like 5 of his works from the library, because I've never read Rage. That wasn't available to me, and you can, since it's out of print, since it influenced actual school shootings. So
oh wow!
I found it at the library as part of a collection of his Bachman novels. So I'm gonna read Rage for the first time. I own some of his other stuff, so I'll probably pick up Carrie soon. But I'm gonna start with the Nightmare Collection, since I'm gonna read it for the film, which comes out this weekend on the 2nd.
Yeah. I'm excited for that one.
The last thing I wanted to say is that knowing that the therapist is the villain in the original short story, it makes you notice certain things about the therapist in the trailer. She might not be... It might be a red herring situation, but I can see... there's a vibe of eeriness to her, and I can see that being the case again. Or it could be a situation where the boogeyman can shapeshift to look like other people instead of it being a mask, which is less silly to me.
Yeah.
So that's everything I had to say for the boogeyman. Looks good.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I'm excited. The use of light and stuff like that in the trailer I thought was interesting. I mean, that's the creepiest fucking nightlight I've ever seen in my life, so I don't know why any kid would ever pick that. It's very bizarre. But yeah, from just a design perspective and things like that, it's very cool looking. And the way that they use light was very eerie, and yeah, it piqued my interest. It's another one. It would have been on my list. The blackening and The Boogeyman would have been on my list had they not been on yours. Going into my number 2, so we're getting into the big blockbuster shit now. Is at the end of the month on June 30th, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And we just talked about Jones last week because we got you to see Raiders of the Lost Ark for the first time. I love this franchise. I'm a little disenfranchised with this franchise. Because Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was the last one. And that has been... Jesus, I don't even know when that movie came out. I'm looking it up right now. Hold on.
Wasn't it like the 2010s? It's like 20.
It was 08.
Well, even earlier. Okay.
Yeah, so 15 years ago. 15 years between Indiana Jones films and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. All right, let me be fair. I watched it once. I saw it in the theaters when it came out. And it was not good. I wasn't a fan. And, yeah, I mean, I love this character. I love Harrison Ford. And I'm glad that the franchise is coming back for a last hurrah. Evidently, the original deal that was signed was by George Lucas and all the folks involved was that they were going to make 5 Indiana Jones films. Well, the first 3 were like 81, 85, 89, something like that. And then nothing until 2008. So it was, damn near 20 years between Last Crusade and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And then Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I think it was mostly panned by folks. I don't know anybody. I don't think I know a single person that loves that movie. And so now we've waited 15 years to get another installment, and now Harrison Ford is 80 years old. And I mean, let's face it, all of his characters that I love are being set up to die. And Han Solo gets killed off, and Deckard gets killed off in Blade Runner 2049. And now we've got Indy, and from what I've read, they're basically letting us know Indy is not supposed to die in this film. That's what I'm hearing. And that it's more about him retiring because Harrison Ford has, and it's obvious, has said this is the last time I'm playing Indiana Jones, which makes complete sense. You're 80 years old. You'll be almost 81 by the time this film comes out. But it's beyond that to me because, there's things about it that are exciting. I've always liked you're looking for the piece of treasure and the traps and the cool setups and those are always fun. James Mangold is directing. I believe this is the first time it's not Steven Spielberg, if I'm not mistaken. I could be way off base there. James Mangold did Logan, which is a lot of people's favorite comic book movie. It was really great. And he also did that really great horror movie from, I think, 2005, Identity, which takes place in a motel, and there's a killer that's taken out all these people, and it's got a really cool twist at the end. If you haven't seen it, check out Identity. I don't know if you've seen that film.
No, I haven't.
Okay, you should check it out. I think it's right up your alley, and it's got some cool performances, and it's a cool horror movie. I haven't seen it in a while. I saw it in theaters and really enjoyed it, and I think you'll like it.
Is that a future product?
We're
teasing.
Yeah, I think we couldn't do that and just hold off, and I'll suggest it at a later time, and we'll get it on the calendar.
Works for me.
Here's my biggest problem with this movie. I guess it's twofold. So, we mentioned it in the Raiders of the Lost Ark episode that the Indiana Jones franchise has the opposite effect of the Star Trek franchise. So the Star Trek films, all the even-numbered ones are the good ones. In Indiana Jones, it's the odd numbers because 1 and 3 are great, and 2 is kind of meh, and 4 is bad. So this is an odd-numbered film. This is the 5th one, but we're coming off of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which was so universally disliked that I can't imagine that they're going to be able to right the ship. And then they go a step farther than that, and they cast Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Helena, his goddaughter, and it is very clearly setting it up that not only is Indiana Jones retiring, but it doesn't even seem like he's going to be the star. It seems like they're setting him up to be the old man who is now being bested by this woman is going to be better than him at everything. And it goes beyond the age thing, like, because obviously he's an 80-year-old man, so like running away from Nazis, she's going to be better at it because she's younger, right? It's all of his experience and stuff like that. Like, she definitely gets the upper hand on him and like locks him behind a fence or something like that. Like, and it's just like, why would Indy fall for that? You know, he's seen and done so many things and not been trapped by so many, you know, of these other plots and opportunities and temples that have these safeguards and things like that he's gotten around. But now this young gal is going to be able to lock him behind a fence and kind of effectively keep him out of a conflict or something like that. It just seems like he's not the central part of his own film anymore, and that they're kind of setting it up for her to kind of either take that role forward, and maybe if the franchise continues, then she'll be the lead or something. I don't know. But it is just one of those things that I'm not really looking forward to seeing another one of my beloved Harrison Ford characters not necessarily die, because maybe he won't die, but just be, you know, he'll be a shell of his former self, and he'll be completely one-upped by this new cast and stuff like that. And I'm not excited about it from that perspective.
For someone who pretty much talked about all the reasons why he doesn't really vibe with the movie, you have it on your number 2 yet.
Yeah, because it's kind of like Star Wars for me, where I'm really jaded about Star Wars movies now, because I think the sequel trilogy was pretty awful for the most part. But I guarantee you, when I see a trailer for another Star Wars movie, I'm going to get excited, because I just love Star Wars in general. It's funny, it's another Lucas product that I'm talking about, but it's just the first thing that came. Or like Marvel, like the MCU. I still get hyped for MCU movies, even though I haven't been over the moon about any MCU property since Endgame, probably. Yeah, none of the Phase 4 stuff has excited me at all. Oh, I'm sorry, No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home was incredible, but it's the only thing from Phase 4 that didn't suck. Just absolutely suck, for the most part. It's just that whole thing. I'm into the franchise. I'm into the tomb raiding and the adventure and the running away from Nazis and stuff. It's just when it's not done well, it's really disappointing. And when decisions are made and things like that to kind of appeal to modern audiences and things like that, and then you just kind of shit on legacy characters that have this awesome fan base and stuff like that, so that you're appealing to another group. I don't know. It just sucks. And I really hope it doesn't happen. I hope I'm wrong. It's just the tone that I get from the trailer is like, fuck that old man. You know, we got this woman now. She's way better, you know. So I'm hoping that it's not that, and that they treat the character with respect, you know. And you would assume that Harrison Ford wouldn't sign on to do something like that. But I mean, at the same time, he's kind of been going on this retirement tour of like, yeah, let's kill all of my, you know, all of my big characters. Let's just go down the list and we'll just get rid of all of them.
I'm limited what I can say about it, because I only just saw Raiders last week, and I haven't watched any of the ones up to that, and I don't think I will until we do our inevitable Indiana Jones arc of reviews, which I guess by then will include this. So look forward to that, and whenever the hell we do it. It has things about it. Like I thought it was funny that this is a film about somebody, you know, up there in age, ready to retire. It's like one last hurrah. But then the director also did Logan, which I haven't seen, but from what I understand is like the same premise. Yeah. And Mads Mikkelsen, who I love, the villain who plays the main villain in this film gives off the same vibes of Belloq did, being like the big bad of the film.
Yeah.
So,
evidently, his character is based on Werner von Braun as well.
Sallah is still in the film, which is great, but it's a little bit spoilery because now I know he lives through all 5 of these fucking things, which I guess is a good thing.
It's true.
It's nice that he's still around. I just said last week.
Yep.
I don't know if that character would fly today because it's like pushing the limit. Having somebody of one nationality play another is frowned upon a lot, but it's the last one, so fuck it, I guess.
I guess.
They have the de facto artifact in the Dial of Destiny, which I can't speak for the things that they're searching for in films 2, 3, and 4, but I guess this... I don't know how you one-up the Ark, which literally had the power of God. How is this like more sought after than that?
It's a good question.
Is this like the finite, supposed end of the franchise? They're not gonna take the female lead and then spin it off into like do a sequel trilogy type beat.
Yeah, I mean that's what a lot of people are assuming is going to happen, and that it's going to move forward with the female lead. I mean, her name is Helena, so she's even got that going on for her. Like, he's Indiana, and she's Helena.
Oh, fuck off.
So like, there's yeah. I mean, it's stupid, but it's what's an American city or another American state, but it can be a girl this time. Oh, Helena, that's the capital of Montana. We'll just use that.
Yeah, it's like being from North Carolina and naming yourself Charlotte or something. Not that that's
there you go.
happened.
No.
I actually
not in any entertainment that we pay attention to.
Actually, liked it in that instance. I thought it was clever.
It made sense.
Yeah, this film does something that I still, and especially because of the how I feel about AI. I think it's a big hassle and pain in the ass, and I don't like its utilization in the entertainment industry. But one thing in that realm that's been prevalent in recent years for a little while now is when you have an older character and you digitally de-age them. I can see why I could give that more leeway, because it makes sense rather than casting somebody that doesn't look at all like Harrison Ford as a young Harrison Ford when you just watched all the other films which has young Harrison Ford.
Yes.
I understand why it's done, but I still don't know how I feel about that. And I'm glad, because there are times where they take a deceased actor and kind of put them in a film, however they do that. And I know I'm certainly against that, but this is something that I've had conflicted emotions about for a while. And I guess I'd give it a pass, but it still feels wrong, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It still feels very... Even though, like, I'd bitch about it either way, so it's a catch-22, it still feels like it's a way to take an opportunity away from potentially another actor that could be in that role.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this is the last film, even though, even me, having only seen one Indiana Jones film, I certainly got the vibe that this is where we do the next generation of this franchise, because that seems to be the direction corporations go nowadays, studios, when it comes to like reviving old franchises. They did it with Star Wars. They did it with... I'm blanking on other examples, but I know there are plenty. They did it with Scream, but I liked that, so I can't really use that. It's been a thing. It's a requel to a degree.
Well, and think about it from this lens as well. They attempted kind of a similar thing, and you'll find it out later, with this franchise, that it seemed like somebody was going to take over the mantle, and then that was so universally hated that they scrapped that idea altogether, which is why that character is not appearing in this fifth film at all.
The other example that I wanted to use, but I stopped myself in my tracks because I haven't seen it yet, was Ghostbusters Afterlife, because I haven't seen that yet, but it does the same. It does the same thing that I mentioned with passing it down. So
yeah,
I'll see it eventually. I'll see it.
It's really
by
good.
December, because that's when the next one comes out.
Oh really? Holy shit!
Yeah, it's,
okay.
I don't remember what the title was now, but the working title was Ghostbusters Firehouse.
Okay.
The last date I saw
sure, why not?
was December 2023.
Wow, okay, like a Christmas release maybe?
Yep.
Okay. So go for it, man. I think it's completely... I think we've talked about Dial of Destiny enough, so fire away with your number one.
My number one is a film that I have been looking forward to for some time now. And I feel like I say that every time we do a Coming Soon episode, because I look at things way in advance, and I'd be like, I need to see that. But then I look at the release date, and it's like, comes out 3 years from now, which is a huge pain in the ass, but, it's worth the wait. It's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I'm not as anti-Marvel as I come across. I don't have as interest in their stuff, having grown up more with DC. I'm more specific about my tastes. I meant to mention that the person directing the new Indiana Jones movie is also directing the Swamp Thing movie.
Oh, okay.
So it's like Swamp Thing is one of my things, as well as X-Men and Spider-Man. I think those are... There's probably another one that I'm blanking on at the moment, but those are like the three. And Miles Morales is my favorite Spider-Man. I think he's way more interesting a character than Peter Parker, who you haven't seen Into the Spider-Verse, have you?
No, and I was gonna follow up your comments by saying, so I haven't even seen the first one.
I'm going to be as careful as possible to not give away any parts of that movie, because I think Into the Spider-Verse is a perfect, fantastic 10 out of 10 masterpiece that needs to be seen and appreciated. It is a beautiful film. I loved it from start to finish, and I think everybody who likes comics, action movies, or even animation should check it out.
Oh shit.
I don't know how far from that this takes place, but it features an older Miles Morales, having already dealt with multiverse shenanigans. They go to this sort of like a physical Spider-Verse realm, and it's called in the film The Lobby. And while the main villain is yet to be seen, it's kind of set up in the marketing like it's the Spot, but it seems based on the trailer that something's going to happen, and for whatever reason, it's going to be a group of Spider-Men from different verses fleeing from other Spider-Men from many other verses, and it looks like Miguel O'Hara, who is Spider-Man 2099 in the comics, is going to be the more of a villain in this film, but not like not necessarily a villain, but the antagonist. I'm sure his motives are great or good. This film features a different cast of Spider-Men than the previous one, and I won't spoil too much of that, but I will say you have to look forward to in the original, the first one I should say, is Nicolas Cage playing Spider-Man Noir, which was great. In this film, you get Spider-Woman, you get Gwen Stacy Spider-Man back, who was I know was definitely a fan favorite from the first one, as well as
Ghost Spider.
Yes, well, that's what she's called. That's what she's called now. When she debuted, I believe she was just called Spider-Gwen. in most of the marketing
Oh,
and
okay.
everything. I think Ghost Spider is more of a recent thing because they realized that Spider-Gwen kind of sucks. Especially since they did the same damn thing with Deadpool. It's not, it's a character named Gwenpool, and she becomes Deadpool, but she's called Gwenpool. I guess they realized we should stop doing that. But yeah,
and it's not Gwen Stacy.
No, it's I believe it's a different Gwen. I think it's just a woman named Gwenpool.
Okay. Okay.
Anyway, yeah, this features Spider-Punk, and a personal favorite of mine, not Spider-Cat, but Spider-Man India, because Spider-Cat was in the it wasn't in the trailer I sent you, but Spider-Cat was in the marketing. It's the cat that spits webs. You have to have your little animal Spider-Man. In the original, you had Spider-Ham from the comics, just a pig.
Uh-huh.
Are you familiar with the character at all?
Yes.
Peter Porker.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad it's shining the light on all these different other interpretations of Spider-Man. God knows there've been so many over the years, and I did not do it yet because I want to watch the movie before I go back to rewatch the trailer to do this. But when they're in the lobby of Spider-Man, I'm sure if I pause that, there would be. I already saw a couple. I'm sure there would be a ton of Easter eggs of them actually being Spider-Man that you could find in the comics. Ben O'Reilly, the Scarlet Spider, is in this, I believe. Even though I don't think he was in that trailer. So, yeah.
Yeah, it would make sense.
They did the meme reference where they said we need to find Spider-Man, and all of them started pointing at each other. These films tend to be really heavy on the comedy. If it's anything, if it's even half as good as the first one, it'll be a fantastic film. And I cannot praise the original enough because it was funny. It had heart-touching moments. It had a killer soundtrack with a Post Malone song on it, even that I think he wrote for the film. Everything about that first movie was great. And I would put it up there with Spider-Man 2 as the best Spider-Man movies in a tie, with one being live action and one being animation. It's a little bit hard to pick a favorite because they're different in that sense. But yeah, I really like when, and the MCU does this too, and I kind of criticize it there, so I'm a hypocrite, so sue me. But I like it when they take characters from the comics that aren't as well known and they put them out there. The reason why I don't like it in the MCU is because there's a difference between having Shang-Chi in an MCU film and making an entire Shang-Chi film. I don't know anything about the character up front to warrant going and seeing an entire movie about them. However, if he appeared in another film, and I'm not saying that this is the way they should have gone, I'm sure they did it the right way. It's just less appealing to me personally. It's better for me to see them doing something else so I know a little bit about them and then have their own thing. And if they're just like, this is the Shang-Chi movie, and I'm like, who the hell is Shang-Chi? And then I assumed that Fin Fang Foom would be in the film, and he wasn't, because he has yet to be in an MCU film yet, and he's right there. Just use him for the love of God.
I had there was a theory out there that the 10 rings that Shang-Chi's dad has control, well, that I guess gives him his power and stuff like that, were the 10 rings that go on Fin Fang Foom's fingers, because they're pretty big and they go around his arm. But of course that never came to pass.
Do it for me. Just like
well, and it's not true. That's not at all what happened. So,
like, I think the worst MCU film, and I have problems with as a whole that franchise, but I think there's only one that I would say is outright like this was awful, and that was the Eternals. Like, I watched that with my lady, and I didn't like anything about it. It was
It
crazy.
was so boring.
Yeah, it was like I could.
It was long and boring.
To put it into perspective, I was like, man, I could be getting chores done instead of watching this movie.
That's a statement. I think I've heard this quote somewhere, and I can't remember exactly where, but it rings true. The biggest crime that a movie can commit is being dull. Because when a movie is bad, you're still kind of being entertained by how bad it is.
Right.
But if a movie is just plain dull, you're getting nothing out of it. And that The Eternals is dull.
Right, and being as into horror as I am, there are a lot of bad horror movies. In fact, there's an entire franchise of bad horror movies, and whenever my father comes over to visit, we have a tradition where we sit down, we found whatever the next Amityville movie is, because that's they're free to make since it's open property. So it's just whatever nonsense there is, and they're always terrible, but we're doing it together and shitting all over it, so it's a good time. The Eternals was not a good time.
Yeah. No.
So, yeah, but back to Spider-Man.
It was a slog.
I had to shit on the MCU as I do. One thing that I will say, and I think you'll appreciate when you watch the first one, and do let me know what you think of it when you do. Peter Parker is the mentor, not willing at first, but he is the mentor of Miles Morales. Miles Morales is newer to being Spider-Man, and he's got his own struggles, which I don't want to get too into because it's more see it and not me tell you, but there's a lot more depth into that character than Peter. So it's great for me to see him in some form. Miles is, in recent years, for good reason, starting to become, I would argue, the new face of Spider-Man, partially due to these films, with the only sort of hurdle in the way of me being able to say that definitively being Tom Holland in the MCU. Otherwise, I would say he is he is going to be, within the next 10 years, when people think of Spider-Man, probably the one they think of. And I think that's good. A lot of people are going to bitch about it, and a lot of people are going to bitch about it for not great reasons that, I'm not going to say it, but you can imagine what that is. There are unfortunate reasons why people would not like what they perceive as a character to look and act a certain way, all of a sudden looking and acting a certain way. And that may be hard to accept, but, much like The Little Mermaid, get the fuck over it. I don't know.
Right.
Anyway, the film
the movie's good or bad.
June 2nd in theaters.
And to wrap it up in a bow, I mean, I could literally watch it on Hulu now, evidently. What? So, I mean, we could finish recording and I could go watch it. Yeah.
The original. Oh, okay. I was about to say, I was like, I just said this comes out on June 2nd.
No. Sorry, no. Into the Spider-Verse, not across the Spider-Verse. Yeah, so I could catch up and be ready for the second film by tomorrow.
I'm giving you homework. You gotta watch The Blackening sketch and you have to watch Into the Spider-Verse.
Alright, done. So my last film, my number one most anticipated for June, is The Flash. And this is another one that I think comes with a lot of caveats. Because I, like you, am a huge DC fan. And so DC has always been my comic company over Marvel. Marvel has Spider-Man, which is my favorite of the Marvel properties. But I like so many of the DC characters and so many of the DC stories and things like that, that the fact that the film series for the DC EU or the DCU or whatever they call it has been so poor for the most part has been really disappointing. The reason why I'm really anticipating this Flash movie is I believe this is supposed to be the last one that kind of takes place before James Gunn steps in to try to write the franchise and try to put it on a different track, I think. And I'm not saying that every James Gunn venture works out perfectly. I just think that he has an opportunity here to right the ship and turn this thing around. The Batman that came out last year was phenomenal. I was a huge fan of it. Outside of that, the Snyder cut of the Justice League is incredibly long. It's better than the Joss Whedon cut, but it is incredibly long. They rushed that team up. They didn't let it build in a similar way to the way the Marvel films built up to the Avengers, and then built off of those to get to this, arc involving Thanos and stuff like that. They just, DC has spent too much time trying to catch up with the Joneses rather than just being their own thing. And I think the films suffer for that. I think there's a lot of good stuff that comes out of them. Like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman I think she's perfect casting for that. I think Jason Momoa's Aquaman is great. I think the Aquaman movie, for the most part, was okay. Like, it was good. But there's so much bad that they still have to figure out. And this movie, because it deals with time travel and things like that, is going to give us the opportunity to kind of set a new timeline, right? Or to kind of get things back on track. I am not a huge Ezra Miller person. I'm not a huge fan of him as Barry Allen. I don't think he looks like Barry Allen. I don't think he acts like Barry Allen. He's obviously a very... I think the actor made a lot of decisions about this is what Barry Allen is, in my opinion. That's fine. But I'm not a huge fan of his. I still think that there's an opportunity for Ezra Miller to make this character his own, or I don't really know. I think there's still an opportunity here to turn it around. And Michael Keaton's Batman is another thing that's going to get me into the doors, and I have a feeling that he's not a huge part of the film. However, he's all over the marketing, the trailer, and stuff like that. And Michael Keaton was an amazing Batman. So I'm excited for his part. Michael Shannon returning as Zod. I love Michael Shannon. I think he's great in most things. And it's directed by Andy Muschietti. I hope I'm saying that right. And I mean, he made the two It movies and Mama, which was all three are movies that I really, really enjoy. And so I feel like it's in capable hands. I really would like to see this be a quality film, and for it to kind of set the DC film universe back on track, to get it back moving in a positive direction, with James Gunn kind of leading that charge.
I'm conflicted about The Flash because of Ezra Miller's association and being in it. I don't know what they could have done differently, but given the actions that person did, I can't. What it would have been in my top 4, but due to that, I don't think I could support it financially. I will still watch it because I have to. And the interesting thing is, this is how they rebooted the comics too. Because it seems that they're doing Flashpoint, or at least a version of Flashpoint, which
it's like inspired by
which
it.
ended up leading to the New 52, which took all of DC's previous stuff. I just tossed it out the goddamn window. So this is like, I believe it is the last DC film in this universe chronologically. But there are a few coming out afterwards, like Blue Beetle, which I cannot be more hyped for. As well as
that looked really cool.
As well as the Aquaman sequel. So Yeah, I'm looking forward to it in that sense, but I can't. I'm not gonna rent it. There are Ugh. There are ways to watch a film without supporting it financially. Now, I'm not saying I support this. You hear that? I said I'm not fucking saying I support this. But if you really need to watch something and something about it is icky and you don't want that to take your money, all I'm saying is there are options. There are ways.
Yeah, you go to a friend's house after they paid for it.
Right. Exactly. Completely legally and you know, support the filmmakers. Just not with your money. I was going to say something even worse for a second. Never mind. Moving on. The rumor even this. So yeah, this brings back. It brings back Ben Affleck as Batman. It also brings back Michael Keaton as Batman. Unfortunately, here's a take for you. Unfortunately, not the best live-action Batman, which is Christian Bale. Sue me, I don't care. But it has two. It has. I was gonna say two fan favorites, but a fan favorite and also Ben Affleck.
Right.
I would argue there are two fan favorites if you include Michael Shannon. There are rumors, and I made sure that this wasn't a leak before I chose to talk about it. So far, it's just rumors. I hope it happens. There are rumors that Superman will be in the film, and he will be played by Nicolas Cage. Who was supposed to originally star in a Superman film that did not get made. The rumor is that Superman will exist in this universe via, some timeline shenanigans, and Nick Cage will be Superman. Really, really, really hope that is the case.
That was the presumed Kevin Smith written Superman film that was supposed to come out.
Yeah, I
in the late 90s.
I heard that was a possibility. And I think he's listed as it on a few sites, but I made sure to check, and it's nothing reliable. It's like moviepoopshoot.com and shit. So, yeah. But it is a rumor, and a lot of people believe it, and I want to believe, like X-Files level, I want to believe so hard that Nick Cage is going to be Superman in this movie. Even if it's just a cameo, even if it's just a post-credit scene, please give me that. I love that man so much. He is a nut, and I want to see him as Superman. But,
well, did you see, in Kevin Smith's stand-ups that he does, his talking show, like Q&A things, he tells a story about writing the script for Superman Lives when he was attached to direct for a little bit. And did you ever hear about his notes that he got from the studio about the things he's not allowed to do in the script?
I didn't. I only recently started watching some of his stand-up stuff.
He said, all right, I just, I'm excited for you to work on this project because I know you're a fan of the character and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, I just have 3 notes for you. And Kevin's like, okay. He goes, I don't want to see him in his suit. I don't want to see him fly. And he has to fight a giant spider in the 3rd act. So he wanted him to write a Superman film where he is never in the Superman suit. He does not fly. And he has to fight a giant spider in the 3rd act.
What the fuck is the point, then?
Those were... I don't know, but those were the notes that he got. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see... I know that we're going to get Kara Zor-El instead, so Supergirl's going to be, your Kryptonian that's, the all-powerful.
Is that... Did she play Supergirl before?
She was attached to be in the Supergirl live-action film that was supposed to be made that I think got put on hold because they were going to introduce the character in this film first.
Well, as far as I know, most of the DC films that were supposed to happen that hadn't started production are pretty much out the window. James Gunn,
she might
has
be
like a 20-year plan for the franchise, which is a good thing because he already knows the direction he wants everything to go, and he has the DC Elseworlds label, which includes shit like the Joker movies and the Batman and the Batman sequel, and then the Penguin show, which should be coming out soon.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. That looks good.
So,
yeah, so she may disappear after this.
There will be the promise of DC films that are not necessarily set in a universe is great. I think Constantine 2 is under the same label. I think that's still moving forward. I'm not entirely sure, but last I heard, it's still happening.
I love Constantine. I'm assuming it's not Keanu again.
I don't know, but I believe it's supposed to be a follow-up to the other film.
Well, in that case, it has to be.
I mean, they could recast them. It happened before.
Well, that's true.
It sucks, but it happens. But yeah, I think the Flash is the most. It sucks because it looks good, but I don't want it to look good because of all the stuff surrounding it. I don't want it to fail, but I just want justification for me to dismiss it, if that makes sense.
It does, and I think that there's some problematic stuff about it. Like, it definitely looks like Supergirl's the star of the show, even though it's a Flash movie. And you've got Michael Keaton's Batman highly featured in the trailer and stuff, but it looks like, I mean, you know, you always deal with that with the Justice League stuff, that Batman is not super. He's a master strategist that has developed all these technologies and these battle strategies in order to combat superpowered beings, but he himself is not super. And it just looks like he's going to drop in and do a bunch of cool stuff, but then Kara is going to fly in and blow everybody up and throw people to the moon and all kinds of stuff and just make him look useless. And so I don't love that, and I'm hoping that that's not what happens, but yeah, it seems like Kara is kind of the centerpiece of this rather than the Flash, but we'll see. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag. I think my 1 and my 2, it's both kind of mixed bags in terms of my feelings, but the properties that they're attached to are things that I hold dearly to my heart, so I want to keep them in my most anticipated because I'm a fan of the franchises, so I'm going to see them regardless. But at the end of the day, my hype meter for how good they're going to be is pretty middling. I'm hopeful, but I'm not sure. And that's kind of where I stand with both Dial of Destiny and The Flash.
Yeah, I'm excited. I would be through the roof under different circumstances if I heard they were doing Flashpoint as a means to end the current DCEU and jump right into James Gunn's whatever the hell he's calling his DC universe. I don't remember. He had a name for it, which features some really weird shit. I don't have it pulled up, but I did mention at the jump that it has Swamp Thing. I'm sorry, that was Marvel. I did his shit. I can't remember. I can't remember what he had, but I remember it was a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you looked at the list, I think it just had titles so far, but it was I have it up. Superman Legacy, The Authority, The Brave and the Bold, which is supposed to have his son Damian Wayne with him instead of a traditional, like, Tim Drake or Dick Grayson Robin. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and Swamp Thing. I get Swamp Thing and Man Thing moved around so much in my head because they're similar characters that I love so much. Because Swamp Thing is one of my favorite Marvel. Goddamn, Swamp Thing is one of my favorite DC characters. Man Thing is one of my favorite Marvel characters, and because they're so similar, in my head, I often forget which one belongs to which company.
Yeah.
And I know I'm the only Man-Thing fan on the planet, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed Swamp Thing. Man-Thing, I just didn't really have much exposure to outside of Werewolf by Night and seeing him in a couple of comics.
Yeah, I grew up with his comics because that's what was... I gravitated towards them when, you know the comic book shop I'm talking about that doesn't exist anymore, near where I used to live. I gravitated towards Man-Thing comics because of how he looked, and because I was into horror and everything at a very young age. I was like, well, this dude looks fucked up. So I started reading his stuff. And the reason I got into Swamp Thing, which is also the reason why I confused the two as far as their companies go so often, is because I, as a young, stupid kid and not an older, stupid adult, I put in the Swamp Thing movie, like the old one from the 80s, confusing it for Man-Thing even then, and then I was like, what the hell, this is not the same character. So I've always had this internal struggle between those two similar characters. But I love them both so much. Because I did end up enjoying the movie. I watched it with my grandmother, who also liked Swamp Thing. But yeah, The Flash is a film that I'm so conflicted about. I will watch it. I want it to be good. But part of me wants a reason to toss it aside. I hope that it's good in the sense that you need a good wrap up. Because I think, like I said, I think chronologically this is the last one, and Blue Beetle and all happens way before. But yeah, we need a good, like, Flashpoint needs to be good. As much as I have reservations about it, if they're doing Flashpoint or even a version of it, Flashpoint needs to succeed. You need to have that last, or in this case, that first hurrah before you go into a whole new universe and attempt to hopefully do your own thing and tell compelling stories and not just try to be Marvel.
Right. Yeah, hopefully they take that first good step forward and then onward to a new horizon for the franchise as a whole. And with that in mind, I feel like we've wrapped up for our coming soon for June of 2023. Does it sound like that for you, Josh?
Oh yeah, definitely. I lost track of my fucking train of thought for a second there, but I ended up ending up back where I wanted to be. Because I went on a tangent about Man-Thing and Swamp Thing, because that whole situation I will forever get confused about.
Well, with that in mind, guys, please reach out to us via email. You can find us at screensermonpod@gmail.com. Again, that's screensermonpod@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter at screensermon, Instagram at screensermon. We're also on Facebook as the Screen Sermon Podcast. And, look for us. Send us comments, send us emails, feedback, suggestions. We're looking for any interaction we can get. So come out and find us and interact with us. And we can really kind of get a community of support. The folks talking to each other about movies is always a good thing. So with that in mind, Josh and I will see you again, and perhaps with somebody else, or maybe it'll just be the two of us again when we review Witching and Bitching next week, movie out of Spain from 2013. So looking forward to talking to you all again next week. Josh, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.